The inevitable has arrived. The next generation of AAA video games are witnessing a price increase from $59.99 to $69.99. This is the first baseline increase since the PS3 and Xbox 360 eras, meaning that there has been no change in the initial cost for roughly 15 years. On the surface, this was the next logical step. The cost of developing video games increased significantly over the past decade, and the newest games are producing titles with superb graphical fidelity unseen in the past. It's hard to imagine that a retro side-scrolling platformer like Super Mario Bros. In 1985 would cost roughly the same amount for something produced in the modern era akin to Final Fantasy VII Remake in 2020, and rightfully so. But it would be disingenuous to ignore the other changes in the gaming industry during that time. Microtransactions, downloadable content, an absurd number of editions that require charts to know which features do and don't come with each one. These new revenue streams raise the revenue potential beyond a game's life, even allowing games like Fortnite and League of Legends to become money-making machines. Opponents to price increases point to such examples as evidence, while asserting that it would make gaming even more expensive of a hobby. Considering the high initial cost of gaming, this argument holds some weight. But whether we want game prices to increase is a distinct dilemma from whether game prices need to rise. The former is obvious. A rational person shouldn't want to pay more for something. The latter isn't so much so. We are told that game development costs are going up, which I wholeheartedly believe. But trying to conduct research on this matter turns up few sources detailing the actual cost of game development. Our best estimate comes from former SIE Worldwide Studios chairman Sean Layden, who said the games cost anywhere from, quote, 80 million to 150 million or more to build, end quote. This is a staggering price, amplified by the context that there is no return on investment until its release. Therefore, it's not an unreasonable demand that a game publisher or developer wants to see returns on games that it's developed for years. Is $70 really an unreasonable price for players to fork over? See, I'd like to say yes, but I cannot in good conscience hold a definitive stance on this issue because there is little transparency about game development and publishing. To put it lightly, it is strange how almost no one seeking information about the game industry from the outside can find critical information about how a game is distributed. Let me pose a few questions for you. How much did it cost to make Sony's last two exclusives? What about the annual Madden and Call of Duty games every year? Are most games capable of breaking even at their original selling price? Does digital distribution truly provide significant financial advantages to physical distribution? With the information currently available to the public, we can often assume but not conclude. It's a major shame because with more answers and more transparency, any skepticism against game prices rising could be erased. More frustrating, however, is that there appears to be no tangible reason for the confidentiality. Drawing comparisons to the film industry, companies often provide the courtesy of releasing general numbers on the production budget of most movies without fail in order to provide a baseline for determining box office success. So why can't game companies do the same? If there is something I remain unaware of that compromises the ability for a game company to divulge such information, I seriously hope that it will come to light in the near future because it might change some of my own habits. See, because I'm a boomer zoomer, I choose to purchase physical games for nearly all of my major releases. I prefer to have the disc or cartridge, and I hold some concerns about game preservation that compels me to stick with physical despite the convenience of digital. If it were to come out tomorrow that developers I want to support earn significantly more revenue on digital storefronts, there's a good chance my purchasing preferences would shift. I would like to believe that getting answers to these concerns would change something about our approach to game pricing. But the reality remains that $70 will be the new baseline, even if Sony claims that its games will be priced anywhere between $49.99 and $69.99 on the PS5. By the way, $49.99 is the price of Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is already confirmed to be of a smaller scale than a typical release. Furthermore, my belief remains that this new standard is not ideal for the gaming industry as a whole. Yes, there are plenty of games that warrant $70, heck, even $80 price tags for the content they bring to the table. But by that same token, there are plenty of games still struggling to justify charging $60 today. Let's not pretend that Madden NFL delivers a game-changing experience with each annual installment, let alone one that prioritizes fun over funds. Ask any gamer to list a game or two from the past 5 years that was overpriced, and I guarantee everyone has their own story to tell. So if this is an unescapable reality, what do? I believe it remains much simpler than some would have you believe. Flexible game pricing. For the longest time, price benchmarks have been assigned to video games depending on their status, but especially as a AAA developer. If Sony attempted to sell The Last of Us Part 2 for $40 at launch, many assume the game has less value. But if you sold a title like Hollow Knight at that price point, you can bet it would turn some heads. By the way, Hollow Knight is phenomenal. Go get it before Silksong comes out. Many people hold this mindset in one way or another, and I have certainly been guilty of it myself. Over time, however, I came to realize that perhaps this thinking was too stringent, and that it was perhaps time for the gaming industry to instill change that would be to the satisfaction and disarray of consumers across the board. Using objective parameters, Red Dead Redemption 2 is not comparable to Fallout 76, despite both featuring initial $60 price tags. Aside from obvious gameplay differences, the former could justify an $80 or $90 base price tag, while the latter should have been a free-to-play online shooter before the internet collectively exposed the game as a glitch-infested disaster at launch.
16 times the detail.
Although it would be a grave disservice not to acknowledge those that already price accordingly. The releases of the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy and the Spyro Reignited Trilogy are remakes of older games that were bundled together for $40 each during their respective launches. Not to mention, most independent studios tend to price their game fairly depending on the scope of their projects. We need more thought and consideration like this to craft a more honest gaming business. And with AAA publishers, perhaps they can reevaluate the priorities to craft games with greater cost effectiveness. While I enjoy God of War in its current state and appreciate the immense detail that's been crammed into every inch of its world, one could argue that such details could be toned down, with greater focus instead placed on refining a combat system with certain flaws, some occasionally attributed to its graphical fidelity. Such games prove that consoles are capable of feats unprecedented even years ago, but it doesn't mean all games should strive to feature the best visual production. Games created on consoles decades ago remain beloved today, and that alone should suffice indication. Before I end this video, I want to reaffirm that I love video games. When I am not contemplating on the economics of gaming, I dive into the imaginative and engaging worlds of fantastic proportions, eager to uncover the secrets hidden within a beautifully apocalyptic world or compete with friends in an exhilarating arena. I only wish the best for the industry and never under any circumstances would want to suggest or encourage actions with the intention of destroying it, especially in this case. Yet I hold conflicting feelings. Every day I hear stories about gaming companies with their sites completely locked on reaping the greatest profits at the expense of their consumers and developers, or gaming studios shutting their doors down and leaving people with dangerous uncertainty about their futures. Will $70 games truly solve the problems of the modern gaming industry? I don't know, but one thing's for certain. The lack of valuable information on game development and the uncertainty of the industry's sustainability is jarring. Anyone who cares for or works with games all suffer from the burdens of secrecy, and it is due to this secrecy that I cannot fully vest my trust within the rhetoric and workings of the gaming industry, let alone that games simply need to increase in price. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video. If you liked what I had to say about game pricing, please consider liking this video and even sharing it with a friend who might be interested. And if you want to see more content like this from me, please consider subscribing to Sekamui or even checking out a couple of the videos that I've already released. Thank you once again, and I will see you guys next week.